Thanks for having me.
For the listeners, I'll do a preamble beginning saying who you are and that you're going to be on, but
Okay.
also you are probably the first guest, I think so, that I've had on that I've never actually met before, and we don't know each other.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? When you have someone on for like a long form interview that you're like meeting for the very, very first time.
It is. I think it would be a little more intimidating if you weren't a comic, because doing comedy, you at least kind of know, like, I have an idea of what other
Yeah,
comics are
yeah,
and stuff, and I know I can talk about stuff.
yeah. I guess journalists though must do that all the time when they're interviewing someone that's not in entertainment. If they're just like a someone who works in medicine or science or whatever, and they're just like all they know is a quote that they've heard from them, which
Yeah.
must make that job so much harder now that I think about it.
Well, you have
Because
to
you're
do
really going off
research.
almost nothing.
I think they would have to do research where, like, I don't think anybody doing podcast comedic wise really does, like, I'm going to do 9 days of research before this interview.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
My
lucky if
wife
they get,
even
like, 9 minutes of research.
well, my wife goes, I was like, I kind of know who he is and I know some of his friends and stuff. I think we have mutual friends.
Like who?
And I was like, what's that?
What mutual friends do you have?
I don't know if you know these guys, but like you're in New York now, right?
Yeah.
New York guys that I know are like Joe List,
Okay.
his wife Sarah. Obviously, there's a bunch of. I was in Boston, is pretty much where I started stand up, and there's a bunch of Boston people that are down in New York now. And
Yeah.
then now that I've moved out here, just guys from the store like Tebow and Tripoli and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, Tivo's great. He's one of my best friends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah.
he's actually been one of the people that I was quickest to become friends with from meeting him at the store, and he was cool about being like, all right, you're new here, I'll show you some stuff.
Yeah, he's super easy to get along with. He just is, like, the friendliest guy.
Yeah, and especially if you like to drink too. If you're willing to drink and have
Right.
a smoke, he'll hang out with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so where did you start out?
I started in, Los Angeles. I'm from there.
Oh, no shit. So you
Yeah.
started in LA. I've always wondered how, if it's just everybody's own experience, but if it's tougher or easier, because I started in Portland, Maine, and then went down to Boston and then out to here after that.
Is
But
there a comedy scene in Portland, Maine?
there was one open mic when I
Right.
started, and there was a club that shut down about 9 months in. It was called
Okay.
the Comedy Connection, and it was owned and run by Bob Marley and his manager.
Oh, cool. Is that where he lives, Marley?
Yeah, he lives in Portland, and he pretty much
Okay.
just has like a domination of all of New England.
Right.
But that's why I moved to Boston real quick, was because there was fucking nothing up there.
Yeah, you gotta get more than one open mic in a week.
Yeah, well, I started the other open mic that started happening.
Yeah.
um,
So when you left, the
but
scene was cut in half, essentially.
I bequeathed it to some people there so it could keep going. And now there's actually a bit more of a scene, and they did have an actual club open up called Empire Comedy Club, but it
Oh,
opened
cool.
in January and then hasn't had anything since March.
Oh, of 2020 it opened?
Yeah.
That's terrible timing.
And they were a music and comedy venue. And then
Oh,
for the new year, they were like, we're going straight comedy all the time. It's going to be Maine's Comedy Club,
yeah.
and then 2
Nothing
months
can
of
stop
shows.
us.
But they're attached to a Chinese restaurant, so hopefully the restaurant will keep them alive until they can actually open again.
Yeah, because that's actually kind of allowed back the indoor and outdoor dining in a lot of states, but like fucking comedy and music, it's like I don't see that shit coming back before next year.
And not in those type of rooms too, like, which are great for comedy, but small, packed, tight rooms underground and
Yeah.
stuff is like nobody's gonna eat. I don't know how many people are even gonna want to go into those.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the states that don't take this as seriously have no problem with that. They're ready to just pile on into a fucking bar, restaurant, anything where they can just hang out. And like friends of mine who've gone to visit family and shit, like in the Midwest and stuff, like they'll go from cities like, you know, New York or LA, and they're just like alarmed at how few people have masks on and are even taking this seriously to
Yeah.
any degree. And it's like, but those are the clubs that are going to open first. And then you're like, well, do I want to go to those states and put my shit at risk performing? You know, you got to fly there, you got to stay in a hotel, you got to go to the club, you got to do the show. Like, there's so many levels of risk to put yourself in. I'm like, I'd rather just not go to fucking West Palm Beach, Florida then.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of them too. I mean, some of the places like Texas clubs are, there's a couple great
Yeah.
ones there, but some of the places too, you're like, that's not even a good club. I don't really care that it's
Yeah.
nice that they're the only ones doing shows, but I didn't want to go there when everything was fine.
Yeah. Some dude hit me up in April somewhere in like North or South Carolina. And he's like, hey man, I'm gonna like put a room together and like, you know, start doing shows and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he wanted me to come down in like late April or May. I'm like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah,
I'm like,
anything that's
no.
like, we want you to open up the new place. You're like, nope, you have somebody else open. I'll be there in a couple
It
months.
also sounded like an illegal operation.
Yeah. Oh,
Where he's
yeah.
like, yeah, I'm putting a venue together. I'm like, does anyone know about it? Like, is it just you? They're gonna like sell moonshine out of a barrel and fucking like, what kind of operation is this? I'm like, I don't even want to know anymore. I'm like, I don't need any like extra info.
Did you even reply once?
I mean, I just replied like just to be polite and say, hey man, I'm actually not looking to, you know, travel or do anything just yet.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, who's gonna argue with that?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
I
know?
have thought about trying to do in the next year solely car based stuff, like stuff putting together like links of shows that you can just take 2 weeks and drive to, just to avoid being in airports and being do less hotels, like more camping in between, especially up the West
Th-
Coast and stuff. There's so much you can do.
There used to be this guy named, I think it was David Tribble or something
The
Tribble.
Tribble runs, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was all that was. It was just like these crazy car-based, you know, gigs that were like one-nighters, 12 hours apart. And it'd be funny if those made like a big comeback.
Yeah, I mean, I know a few guys from here, a couple of like door guys from the store and stuff who have just been like, I'm going to Montana for a month. I'm just going to go hang out up there and see what's
Yeah.
happened, especially because nothing, it's, you know, a lot safer up there. But I think a lot of people, that's changing how they're planning their future and what stand up is going to be, especially.
Yeah, man, it's hard to think about even like a few months out because it's just so unpredictable. You're just like looking into like a thick blanket of fog. You're just like trying to see through, and you're like, you just gotta wait till it clears up. Like, there's nothing you can do to make it more visible.
Yeah. And I was
Crazy.
thinking what my thoughts were when it first happened, and like what I thought July was going to be. And now
Oh yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
July, you're like,
yeah,
I should just stop the fucking thinking I know anything about what anything's going to be.
yeah. I mean, I was in the middle of a fucking tour when it was just everything shut down.
Yeah.
I was like in I was going from like Portland to Boise, Idaho, and we had another stop in between, but then that show got canceled. It was in like Eugene, Oregon. So then we couldn't do that. And then we had to drive straight to Boise. And then by the time we get to Boise, the next day that was canceled because the state was like, can you guys please not perform?
Yeah.
And then, so then we're like, all right, well, Salt Lake City's probably going to be next. So we just were like, everyone was like, all right, everyone's going home. And we just like all got flights back to LA, and then that was just kind of it. It was like right in that same week that the NBA was canceling their season and all that sort of stuff. And we are just like, dude, is this like the end of live performance for like we were thinking 2 months,
Yeah. Now
you know, which we're like, can
could
you
be like a
believe
year.
it? Yeah. Now we're like 4 or 5 months in with no end in sight. I mean, I don't know, dude.
Um, so that I do want to talk. Was that the tour where you guys were following Tool?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I do want to talk about that because I thought that was really cool, and I have my own ideas of the bands I would do that with.
Okay, yeah.
Um, but this is to live and bike in LA because I ride a bike a lot, and that's how I kind of saw. I think it was from like Instagram. You've been posting bike rides you've been doing, but you are a big bicyclist and used to ride a lot when you were here.
Yeah, yeah. I have a few bikes out there, and I would use one. I started biking for like as a commuter, I guess, in like 2006 or seven, maybe. So
So where were
biking
you
wasn't.
riding then? Like what parts of town are you commuting in?
I was living in Los Feliz at the time, and still am. And um, I had sort of like I wanted some kind of project to do that had nothing to do with like, entertainment. So I was like, oh, I'm going to build a bike and then bike around more. And so there's this place called the Bicycle Kitchen, which
I know it
is
well. I
okay.
used
Yeah.
to live right by it in Silver Lake there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
if
it
you're in LA,
used,
it's a great place.
yeah, it's a great place to like go learn about bikes, and just kind of tinker and work on your own stuff if you don't have tools, which a lot of people don't have like bike specific tools.
And if you
Um,
don't have the money for all of the, it's a donation based and they have
yeah.
tons of like if you need to fix your bike, just tons of spare parts.
Yeah. It's a great resource. And a lot of cities have places like it. So if you just like Google bike kitchen, bike co-op, that kind of thing, there's probably going to be something like that. But so I decided to buy an old road bike off Craigslist. And this is like right before the fixed gear thing was kind of becoming popular. And maybe it was kind of starting more so in San Francisco and like Chicago and New York, or like more bike friendly cities, but LA hadn't really seen much of it. So you could get like an old mid 80s, 8 speed, 10 speed road bike for $100,
Hmm.
maybe less. So people just didn't know what they had really. So I bought one off some guy in like Downey. I drove down and I met this dude and I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get like mugged or if this is like a fake thing. It just like the whole thing seemed sketchy. Like they wanted to meet sort of in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, why here? And
By
then
an
it was,
industrial yard.
yeah, kinda. And I think it was like it ended up being like the guy had a bunch of bikes he was selling and he just didn't want me to know where he lived. So he probably thought like, I don't want this guy
Why
to
is
know
this
that I
guy
keep.
agreeing to this?
Yeah, yeah. So we kind of both thought that about each other. We're like, is this guy up to something, Because I think the guy was selling like somewhere around like 30 or 40 bikes. It was like his side job or maybe his even primary job, just fixing and turning over. And
Yeah,
so
I've
he
seen
sells
those,
me this
and you
bike.
see it a lot now with the homeless guys too, having like just tons of bikes around their tents, and they're constantly
Really?
working on them. Yeah,
Wow, that's actually a good idea to make
yeah.
extra. I mean,
Some look for real, and others just look like meth projects. But some guys look like, oh, they are
yeah.
actually fixing a bunch of bikes and trying to get them out
Yeah, you're
there.
like, that one's made out of aluminum cans entirely. Just some methed out dude has been up for like 6 days. Um, but I would stand by their handiwork because they are fucking focused as fuck. If
Oh
they're just
yeah.
methed out of their minds, they're probably building amazing product. Um,
They can clean a
so
bike like nothing else.
yeah, yeah, spotless. You could eat off it. So then I bought the thing and I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just strip this fucking thing down and turn it into like a single speed or maybe like a fixed gear. I wasn't sure at the time. So I went to Bicycle Kitchen and I walked in. First guy I saw, I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. I have no idea what I'm doing. And this dude just walked me through step by step. Like they don't, as you know, they don't do anything for you. They just show you what to do.
Yeah.
And your learning curve is insane when people do it that way because you're not
Oh yeah.
watching this guy and kind of trailing off. You have to do it and learn. So within like I think a couple months, I knew, and I already known a good amount about bikes. I used to like BMX bike and stuff when I was a kid and shit.
So you knew
And
the basic functions of the cranks and how
yeah,
the wheels worked and stuff.
yeah, and like changing tubes and removing tires and swapping out like parts, but like removing a cassette off the bike and like changing out a bottom bracket and stuff like that. It was like I didn't
Yeah.
know, So now I can like build a bike from nothing, you know, which was great because I'm like, if this thing ever needs any work, I can now do it on my own and get around town. And gonna upgrade it as I go on, and I still have that bike to this day. It's like a
Nice.
mid '80s Motobecon, and I have like bullhorn bars on it and like a
Did you go
Sugino
fixed gear
crank.
with it?
No, I went freewheel, just
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm like, it looks cool to have a fixed gear, and I'm like, I just don't want to fucking injure myself because it's already dangerous enough riding in LA. And I'm
Yeah.
like, do I want to be that guy that wasn't able to like brake using his own, you know, pedals because I was too cool to have brakes, and then now I don't have a neck, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
had it was a freewheel when I first bought it. It was a Schwinn. I got it in Boston, and it was single speed, but it had brakes on it. And then once the brakes ran all the way down, I was going to have to put new pads on. I was just like, let me fucking figure out this fixed wheel thing. And it had, you could just flip the wheel around.
yeah,
It was fixed on the other side. And I did it pretty well, but it actually got stolen my first week out here. And now,
really. What was
yeah,
the
I was
story behind
stupid.
that?
I was stupid. I thought I could lock it up at a metro station and it would be there the next morning.
Oh man, the whole thing must have been gone, right?
Every lock too, everything. Yeah.
God damn, they just took the whole thing. That actually, a version of that happened to the Motobecon I have. I was thinking, and I didn't think it was dumb at the time, but now I tell everybody this. But I went to. Have you ever been to the Bright Spot, that diner in Echo Park?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay. So it's like on a busy street. It's on Sunset Boulevard and something, and right on a street corner. It's a high traffic area.
The Alvarado, maybe.
It's a little east of that,
Yeah.
across from that French restaurant,
How do you say
TAIX.
that place? It's like TIAX or something.
I think it's pronounced Tay
Oh,
from
okay.
like I think so because
Yeah.
there's actually a bike race in France called the Paris Roubaix, and that's spelled with an AIX at the end, but you don't say it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think it's the same, but I
We'll
have
go
fucking
Tay.
no idea. So I just have been calling it that. But
Yeah.
so anyway, I went there to eat lunch with a friend of mine, middle of the week, middle of the day. And I was like, oh, I'll just lock the bike up to this, fucking horseshoe looking bike rack thing that they have outside of everywhere with just my U lock and just lock the frame. Thinking like, I don't need any more than that. I'm like sitting in this restaurant by the window. We'll be here for like maybe an hour. So an hour goes by. I go out and my bike was like this. So I'm like looking at it. I'm like, that's more than a flat. Like, why is it fucking? I get
Oh, that
closer.
somebody nabbed the tire,
The rear wheel is
rear
gone,
wheel. Yeah.
and the rear brake. So
Wow.
they had a full on tool. Like these were pros,
Yeah.
because you have to have like I think an Allen key and like a small wrench to be able to get the whole brake system off.
And it was a like a horseshoe brake, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
clip
yeah.
side. Yeah.
So they fucking took the wheel and that, and it was just gone. And this is before Uber or anything like that. So I had to call a cab company and request a van so they could
They're like, "Are
come
you in a
fucking.
wheelchair, sir?" And you're like,
Yeah,
"That's
I
it's
know.
not.
Yeah, I'm like I'm crippled in a way.
I have
So
lost a wheel, so
yeah, yeah, I've lost some ability to get around. So then I fucking threw it in the back, and then I had to go buy a new wheel after that and a new brake. And then after that, I was like, all right, I'm getting a bigger U-lock so I can lock the rear wheel and the frame to the thing, which I always suggest people do,
yeah,
or get a U-lock with a cable, which doesn't add that much time before they can steal it because they're gonna get through everything if they want to. But as long as your shit's more locked up than the bikes around it,
that's something else. Yeah, you're pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I've also so I had the whole bike stolen, and then I've had 2 seats stolen on the new bike that I have out
Was it a
here.
Brooks saddle?
The first one was, yep.
Yeah.
And then I went into the bike kitchen. I was like, I got my seat stolen. And they're like, get rid of that quick release on your seat. That's dumb to have. And I was like, yeah, you agreed?
Okay.
Yes. And I forget which one. I got a nice one from that. But the biggest reason it got stolen too was I was at the Improv. And when I first got out here, I was like a little embarrassed to ride to shows and stuff on a bike. I didn't want to like
Yeah.
get off stage and then the crowd be like, wow, you were great. He's getting on a bike, and then just squeak
Right,
off.
right.
But now I don't give a shit. I lock it up inside the patio at the Improv, and like right in front of the store. But
Yeah.
the seat got stolen because I had locked it around the corner at the Improv because I didn't want people to know I was riding up on a
Right.
bike. And then I came around, and then to ride, I was living in Silver Lake. To ride from the Improv back to Silver Lake with no seat fucking sucks. You don't realize how much harder it is on your arms and legs when you have to stand the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, I rarely stand on a
Yeah,
bike. So imagine going from that to all the way there.
it was
Fuck, that
brutal. I
sucks.
didn't. It was the shoulders the most. I didn't realize. Like the
Yeah.
next
What
day,
kind of
my
bike
shoulders.
was it? The Schwinn?
No, so I got a new. Now I have a Trek mountain bike. I've switched over to a
Full
mountain bike.
mountain?
It's just got front suspension, no rear suspension again. But for riding around here, I like to take it on the trails and stuff too. We've moved down to Santa Monica now.
Okay.
But also the roads were so shitty that like you go a little slower, but you're blowing way less tires and you can take potholes and stuff. So it's,
Yeah, it's
you go
easier on your
faster.
body.
Yeah, a lot easier on the body. And when I was riding from Silver Lake into Hollywood a lot, like Santa Monica or Sunset, or their roads are just so shitty and not good for biking on, that I wanted to be able to be like a lot quicker and hop onto the sidewalk if I thought somebody was gonna fucking kill me or something.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take Sunset for on any bike for any reason. It's the worst for biking.
Yeah, yeah,
It really
Sunset and
is.
Santa Monica. Hollywood's a little better, um, but I what I do is when I'm going home at night, and I hate people who ride on the sidewalk regularly, but at
Mhm.
1 in the morning going home from the Comedy Store or something, I was like, I'm taking the fucking sidewalk. People are drunk and driving. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to ride a lot at night, and I spent, I think, like a good year or so only biking everywhere.
Hmm.
Unless like unless I absolutely had to use my car, and the only reasons would be to transport something big, or if I had to go from like if I had like two auditions in the same afternoon and one was in like Santa Monica and the other one's in Hollywood and the window of time was way too small,
Yeah,
then I was like, okay, I will take my car. But if I just had one audition in Santa Monica, I'm like, I'm biking out there. If anything,
that's what you're doing.
I'll be refreshed when I get there and I can just kind of towel off in the restroom and whatever. And those auditions went better because I got there with some energy and shit, and
Yeah.
felt good. There was no stress from traffic. I wasn't in a bad mood and shit.
And it's
So
almost like because you have to pay attention so much when you're
yeah,
biking, it's kind of meditative in a way where it doesn't allow you to think about other shit. You have to pay attention to the shit on the road.
yeah, you just become more alert, kind of the whole way there. And in a way that isn't as stressful because you're alert when you're driving, but you can't really get out of a situation. If you're in a car, you just get frustrated because you have to deal with it. But if someone cuts you off with a car or anything like that, or there's some traffic, you can just turn and get on another street or get on the sidewalk like you did
Yeah.
and get around it. Every problem can be solved instant on a bike. And a lot of times, like Los Feliz, and no one believes me when I say this, but Los Feliz to Santa Monica, I'd say like 80 something percent of the time, I can get there faster on my bike than if I drove. And
Oh,
no
for
one
sure.
believes me.
Yeah.
No one fucking believes me. And I go, with the exception of like 2 in the morning,
Yeah.
like fine, you're gonna win. But if it's like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
get there first, including parking, dude. I'll be
Well, that's a
fucking
big
waking
thing
up
too.
from a
When you're
nap.
going to shows and shit, like you'd be like, how long is it from where I'm going to the show or the audition? That's exactly the amount of time I need. I don't got to worry about fucking parking. I don't got to
Yeah,
worry about what if I get caught here or anything. You're like, however long it's going to take, that's exactly how long it's going to take.
yeah. So yeah, I love doing it. I mean, I would ride to every show and like, I mean, I think I lost maybe 15 pounds or something just from like,
Mm.
all the extra exercise that you like were putting yourself through every day. Cause it was like, you can't get anywhere without having to go a minimum of 3 or 4 miles in Los Angeles. So like round trip, even if you go 2 places, you're getting 10, 15 miles under you. And then if you're doing shows and stuff, that's like repeat that at night, that you're fucking burning calories. You can drink more.
I
You
was gonna
can just
say, do you
kind of,
drink it all?
well, I mean, I quit drinking years ago, but like
Oh
when
yeah.
I used to, I would have, a couple of beers at the show, even though you can still get a DUI biking. I
You
would like,
can, but I want to meet the guy that does get a DUI and find out how fucked up they were. To even get noticed by police on a bike out here, I feel like you really have to be fucking just plastered, like barely able to
yeah,
ride the bike, or the
or
police want to
just,
fuck with you.
yeah, or just pull like some kind of dick move in front of a car, and then the cop pulls you over for that,
Yeah.
and then they smell the booze on you, and then it's a whole new world of trouble. But the day I started to take that seriously, because I was like, cops aren't pulling cyclists over for shit. And then I was riding through Glendale, and this is again in the middle of the day. The only problems I've ever gotten in on a bike are in the middle of the day for some reason. It's never been at night, oddly.
Yeah.
But I'm I'm riding through Glendale, and I get to a red light, and it's a four-way red, and I'm just sitting there waiting. And a lot of times, like, the arrow will go across from you, and after that arrow, your light will turn green, and then you can go. So you kind of
Yeah.
memorize that pattern, and that's what I was waiting for. And then that arrow went yellow and then red. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to turn green now. So I started pedaling, and then I got like 3 or 4 pedals into the street, and the light was still red. And I was like, oh, weird, that's taking longer. And then it turned green. So I was
Yeah.
like halfway in the intersection on a four-way red, and then it turned green, and I thought I was fine. And then I just like I see lights and sirens kind of behind me. So I'm thinking like some cars getting pulled over. So I kind of pull off a little to the right. And then this like motorcycle cop comes up right next to me, and he's looking at me, and I'm kind of like looking over at him, and he's saying something I can't hear him. And he's like, and I'm like, pull over. So I'm thinking like, did I do something to like, was I in the way of a car or whatever? So I pull over. I couldn't imagine what he's pulling me over for. And then he goes, hey man, you think you can just like run a red light whenever you want because you're on a bicycle? I'm like, what? And he's like, you just ran a red light. I'm like, no, no, I went, what? And he's like, you got halfway into the street and then that red light turned green. I'm like, okay, yeah, but it's not like it was red and the other,
We all
and then
knew
as
what
I
was going
was,
to happen.
exactly. But as I caught myself explaining it, like going like, well, it's not like their light was green and I was putting myself at risk. I was like, oh, anyway, I slice it, he still has a point. I
Yeah.
technically ran a red light. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. Just write me the ticket. And then he started going, you have to obey the same laws as a car, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, I don't need the lecture. Just if you're gonna write me a ticket, give me the ticket and let me go.
Yeah.
And then I just like sat on the sidewalk and just waited for him, and then he wrote it out. And then the only upside was it doesn't go on your record in any way.
You're like driving
So
points or anything.
yeah, no points, which is great. But the downside is it's the same fucking cost as running a red light in your car.
Which has got to be
So
what, like 200-300 or something? Oof.
it was like 330 something dollars from what I remember.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It was, I mean, it was more than the cost of my whole bike, including all the upgrades I put on
Yeah.
it. It was infuriating. It was infuriating. And I was like, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to go to court and all this shit and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, that's a fucking waste of time too. There's no way. I don't stand a chance. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Explain that it was halfway red and the arrows normally turn. So I just paid it and just pretended it didn't happen. I was just like, I can't even think about that as a real thing because it's going to just drive me insane. So I'm like, just pay it, never do it again in Glendale, especially.
Mm.
And then, obviously never, ride at night while drinking. Cause like, if that costs $300, what the fuck is the biking under the influence going to cost me? So I'm like,
And are you not allowed to ride a bike for like, do they take away your bike privileges if you get an
Yeah.
OUI on a bike?
Yeah, I wonder if they do. Like you can only drive, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like we only want to see you behind the wheel of an automobile from now on.
um, I've gotten a ticket for it was similar. It was in Boston, and I rode through a red light because it was a four-way walk sign. So like everybody had the walking, and I was taking a left-hand turn, and I was like, "This is best case scenario for me not getting hit by a car to try and take like a left-hand turn on a." It was on Mass Ave, like right by MIT, so it's like 4 lanes and stuff. So I figured, oh, I'll
Uh,
go when the walk signal is out. And I got to the other side. Same thing. Motorcycle cop pulled up and gave me a ticket for. He didn't do running a red light. I forget. I think he just did like reckless riding or something like that. But
okay.
he asked if I had my license. I was like, no, I don't have my license on me. And so he just wrote a ticket to nobody. He's like, you have to pay this. I was like, you don't
What?
know who I am.
Did he ask your name and you just didn't give it to him?
Yeah, I gave him, an abbreviated version of my name. I think I just said because my full name is Jordan William Handren Seavey,
Okay.
and so I just cut it down to Handren Seavey a few years ago
Okay.
for performing and stuff. But I think I just told him it was like maybe William Seavey or something like that.
Yeah. So then
Um,
did you pay it?
no, never. No, I threw it away right afterwards, and I was the whole time going like, "Am I going to hear something about this?" And never heard
That's
anything about it.
great.
Yeah, it was
That's
kind of
great.
he was kind of like that. I was like, I don't have to have a license on a bike, and he was like, well, he kind of saw that his vision was flawed in that way of like he's right. He doesn't have a license. What am I gonna do here? I'm not gonna arrest the guy.
Can they give you a ticket for not having proper ID when you're out in public? Do they have a law like that there?
I would, I don't know, but I doubt it. This is in Cambridge, and they're super liberal there.
Right.
But it'd be interesting, especially now. What that was,
Yeah.
maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But
Right.
now it'd be interesting. Um, Oh yeah, I was gonna say, hit. Have you ever been hit?
Yeah, I've been hit a few times, and they're all during the day. More daytime. Um, let's see. There's one time where it's like it barely counts, but I guess if it's never happened to you before, it would be kind of jarring. I was coming down Vermont out of Griffith Park,
Hmm.
um, and it was Vermont and Los Feliz Boulevard, and I came down to a red light, and there was a car about to turn right onto Los Feliz Boulevard, and you would think this car just finished coming down from Griffith Observatory, that area. There's fucking cyclists everywhere, and pedestrians and runners and people with dogs, and they don't look. They
Oh
didn't
yeah.
fucking look. So they're getting ready to turn right, and then the light turns green, and I'm right next to these people. So I start going, assuming they're gonna just kind of inch forward, maybe, but then stop. And then he tries to gun it, and then I'm obviously going forward still, and I kind of run into their car, but I was going slow enough to where I put my arm up on their window, and there's three young people in the car, and they all just sort of turn around and see me just kind of up on the window, and I went like this to them, and then they all looked at each other and then just kind of laughed, and then when they laughed, I was like, all right, and then I just fucking punched the guy's window, and then got up to the front window and hit it again. I'm like, you think that's fucking funny? And I'm like, use your fucking eyes before you cause a fucking problem. And then they were like, just sort of frozen in fear. And I'm like, you're not laughing now, are you? And then I rode off. Um,
There is a fury that comes out in biking because you are ignored, but when it
yeah,
comes to fruition that you are visibly being ignored, there's an anger that comes out. And I think you feel like you can hit a car, like slap. I've definitely, when people do that, like just slap the back windshield as I ride by, just to freak them
yeah,
out a little bit, let them know that they weren't looking or anything. But yeah,
yeah,
there's like this thing about you where you just get so mad and you have no problem, being like, all right, now I'm gonna release this.
yeah, yeah. Um, I did that another time on Santa Monica Boulevard in like around the Westwood area, going out to West LA where there's like a big protected bike lane that kind of
Yeah.
like runs for miles. And now I think they've extended it to where it connects with West Hollywood. Um,
I
so it's
haven't
like,
ridden it yet because we just moved out to we're in on like near 20th and Pico in Santa
okay.
Monica. So I have ridden in Santa Monica Boulevard and Broadway and stuff down to the water a lot. And it is
Mhm.
so much better as far as bike lanes and shit out here
Oh yeah, yeah. The
on the
West
west
Side is,
side.
yeah, it's a lot better. I mean, they have like the bright green lanes, and I mean downtown has like a version of that too, and it's pretty well organized, and like
Yeah,
you
the
actually
Spring
feel
Street,
protected. Yeah, yeah. You
the
feel
Spring Street
pretty
protected lane
safe.
is pretty good.
Um, so I was on that stretch of Santa Monica, like coming back from a round trip from Los Feliz, Santa Monica back. So then this fucking truck does this thing where like a lot of people have this idea that they can like be driving down the street and then a cyclist is here, but then they think, oh, I'll zoom ahead and turn. But when they're turning, they have to slow down. And when they're slowing down, you're still coming. So like they think once they're like this, they're like, oh, I'm now a mile ahead of this guy. It's like, no, dude, you're maybe a car length and a half in front of me. And what a lot of drivers don't realize is like, I'm going 15 to 20 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Like I'm moving. So if you speed up and then slow down to turn, I'm going to be there like that. So that's what happened. So I get there, then the guy sees that, and then he decides not to fully turn and goes forward again. But by then I had to like run myself off the road, and I crashed sort of into like the curb and almost fell off the bike, but was able to like catch myself like on my right leg and like skid to a stop. I almost went over the front, and then I'm like, all right, that's it. And then this guy like ended up, he didn't stop or anything. I think he was just like, okay, that guy doesn't exist anymore. I'm fine. So we went up to the red light, like half a block down, and I raced down there.
You got to him?
And yeah, and I hit his window, his driver's side window, and I was like, "Hey, motherfucker!" And he like rolls down the window. He's like, it was like kind of like a construction work truck, and he was just like, he's like, "What, man?" I'm like, "Did you just see what you did to me back there?" He's like, "I didn't, I didn't see you. I didn't know." And I was like, "Dude, you need to fucking use your eyes. I didn't know it doesn't work. You're gonna fucking kill somebody." He's like, "Hey, man, you're getting pretty aggressive. You sound like you want to fight or something." I'm like, now you want to fight? Is all you can do is think about injuring people? I'm like, I don't want to fight. I want you to use your fucking eyes when you drive. And he was like, all right, man, just you calm down. All right. And I just like, I didn't even say anything after that. It was just like, he heard me. That's it. That's all I need.
Yeah.
He
That's
heard.
yeah, that's a lot more than I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Somebody actually being like apologizing. But yeah, also like stop too. You just caused an
Yeah.
accident. You got to fucking stop for that
Yeah.
shit.
And then this
Um
other time I was on Fountain somewhere in Hollywood. And it was after like
terrible
Highland.
terrible
Where
road to
Fountain
ride
turns
on.
into a, yeah, yeah, it's bad. Well, I mean, there's a
Yeah,
part of it that's okay where it has like a bike share, but then it gets into like a little one lane situation after
with the
Highland until
parking.
like Cahuenga. Yeah. So I was on that stretch of it. And to be fair, I was on the phone. I was like riding one hand. But in the end, I think that ended up saving me because I was going really slow
Oh
because I
yeah.
was talking. And this car decides to turn right. It wasn't like a speed up and turn. It was just like, I'm now turning. And the lady didn't look or anything. She just turned. And then I just fucking went right into, I just T-boned her. But since I was going so slow, I didn't like go flying over or anything. I was able to catch myself again and not fall. I dropped my phone. And then the lady gets out of the car and she's like freaking out, hyperventilating. And, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And her English was very like broken. So I didn't fully get everything she was saying. But before I could say anything, she offered to take me to the hospital. She offered to buy me a new bike and give me money. And a part of me was like, I could take this lady for so much right now. And then I'm like, out of all the situations I've ever been in or seen, this is the most apologetic I've ever seen someone be
Yeah.
dealing with a cyclist. So I'm like, at least she feels bad. So I was like, I got up, I looked at the bike to make sure nothing was wrong with it. Otherwise, I probably would have been like, give me your info.
Yeah.
Bike was fine. I was fine. I go, listen, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to look in your mirrors when you make turns like that and see if there are people on bikes, because there are. And one day that's going to be a lot worse than it was today.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, I'm very sorry. I'm like, that's all I want. Have a good day. And I just rode off. And
Can
then
I ask, was the broken English, was she, was it Spanish speaker?
she was like Asian, Korean, some probably Korean, a lot of Koreans in LA.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
That's, yeah, I think I would go. I wouldn't want to take somebody like that, especially because two things. One, acknowledging the accident.
yeah,
If you're in a car and you ever hit a bicyclist, acknowledging that you did something wrong really diffuses the situation.
yeah.
And I don't know. If a white person hits me, I hate them more for it, I guess.
Yeah, especially if it's like white person in a nice car. You're just like,
Yeah.
fuck you. I would have been like, oh, my neck, my elbow. I'm like bending my own rim, just to be like, look, dude, you owe me a pair of carbon rims now that are 1,000 each. So hand them
Yeah, these
over.
were one of a kind, really. I've hand
Yeah,
built
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
bike.
Yeah. Lance Armstrong gave me these, it's um and then the worst one I was in, um, I ended up turning into a bit that I put on my second album, along with a story about seeing a bear. I took my bike to Lake Tahoe,
Oh, nice.
and there's an improv up there that I would do a few times a
I
year.
just I just did it in January and used it to go skiing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great vacation gig. It's really
Yeah.
good.
And I
So I
gave
take
away
my bike.
tickets to the show to get ski tickets.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What's his name? Oh fuck, what's the MC's name?
He is no longer the MC. That was a topic they told us when we got there. It was Nicole.
Oh yeah, I
Nicole
know
Davis.
Nicole. Yeah.
Yeah, so she booked me for it, and she told me the whole thing. Apparently, he got fired. Some people aren't happy about it. Some people are, but the guy who was the MC, right when he stepped on stage, somebody goes, "Where's?" and whatever that guy's name was.
Ah, that's so funny. God, what is his name? I wanted to say Harvey, but it's not Harvey.
No, it's at Harvey's. It was like something
Yeah.
like that, though. It was a Dougie or something.
Damn, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He does the radio show up there. He's like the fucking mayor of Tahoe in a way. Um, but anyway, I took my bike up there and I rode the whole entire Lake Tahoe loop, they call it. So it's like 72, 73 miles.
Awesome.
And on that on that trip, I saw a fucking bear in the middle of the street, and there's a whole story. I'm not gonna rehash
It's
the
on.
bit.
What's the name of the album?
1982.
1982 on Spotify right
Yeah,
now by Nick Youssef.
yeah, everywhere. Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can listen to anything. But so so anyway, the thing that happened in LA, I kind of tacked onto it, but I was in Los Feliz, like 2 blocks from my place, and a few of these stories that I've told all were me riding without a helmet, which I I was dumb to be like that, just because for many from 2006 until like 11, I think, or 12, I was just like, I don't want to wear a helmet, and I look back on that time as like, is not smart. I could have really fucked myself up, and it just was like, it's just easier. You don't want to do it, and you got to carry it around. It fucks your hair up, whatever, all these reasons. It looks stupid, but you just got to do it. It's really dumb not to, and you just do
This
it
is
and
true.
forget about
I do not a lot.
it.
It
Yeah,
is a stupid decision.
yeah.
But the carrying it around. Uh, get back to your crash story.